Ohio State's run game took a big step forward in the blowout win over Penn State.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Tuesday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, veteran sports talk host, delivering passionate coverage about your Buckeyes, and today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. During today's show, we will discuss what's next for the Buckeyes offense after their massive performance against Penn State, as well as my thoughts on BRIAN HARTLINE's play calling in that game. But first, when you think about Ohio State's offense, you think about Julian Sayin and how efficient he has been and him being a guy that should be the Heisman frontrunner. You think about Jeremiah Smith and CARNELL TATE and their ability to be elite on the outside. And then you think about the running game that hasn't been up to the standard at Ohio State this season. That has been an issue. We've talked about it numerous times on this show. But this past weekend against Penn State, that part of the Buckeyes offense took a big step forward as they were all in sync. And they were all asked to do one simple thing: be efficient. When your number is called, simply be efficient. From Bo Jackson to Donaldson to West to Peoples. Whenever you were on the field, simply be efficient. And that is the right word to utilize here because describes how this running game was on Saturday. You're not asking them to get 10 to 15 yards a pop. You're not asking them to do anything other than keep moving the chains, keep moving the ball forward. If you get 5 or 6 yards on a run, great. That's perfect. If it's 3rd and 2 and you need 3, get those 3. That is perfect. They're not asked to be the guys that Ohio State's going to lean on to get big yardage. No, this is not a team that needs a 2,000-yard rusher like Ohio State needed in 2019 with J.K. Dobbins. That's not what's needed with this team. What's needed with this team is for the run game to simply be efficient. And that's the best word to utilize because that's what they were. By the numbers, they match up with what my eyeballs told me. Bo Jackson, 8.1 yards a pop. James Peoples, 4.8 yards a pop. Isaiah West, 3.3 yards a pop. Not mad about that. You're a young guy. You're third in the room right now. He had 4 carries, about 13 yards. He had a long of 11. So it does detail like some of the runs were stuffed, but I am not mad about what he did. I can't be upset with anything that happened. The only thing I'm not pleased with is Donaldson fumbling inside the 20, your own 20-yard line. So giving the ball to Penn State in plus territory in the red zone. They ended up coming back and turning around and scoring, which is what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to capitalize on that opportunity, on the mistake that Donaldson made. Come back in the second half, Donaldson scores. It doesn't erase the fumble, but it shows that he has his mind right. And with him being a short yardage back, 2.4 yards a pop, and you're the short yardage guy, you can't complain about that. These guys, and over, and I went back and watched the game and looked at certain clips and try to rewind a little bit to see what was going on. And it was nice to see West, Peoples, Jackson, Donaldson hitting the hole with purpose every single time. And I mean hitting the pole, hitting the hole. There you go. Hitting the hole with the right purpose, the decisiveness, the definitive movements and steps, and your vision was exactly where it needed to be. They all showed the necessary steps and improvement after the off week, because it very well could have been a game like it was a year ago after the off week when the Buckeyes came back and played Nebraska. I think it was on homecoming too, and it was just a weird game. The Buckeyes didn't have any juice. They went to the stadium and they knew they could have probably sleptwalked and won the game, which is exactly what happened. You couldn't sleepwalk and beat Penn State. That's a very talented team that is lacking confidence. They're not lacking talent. They're lacking confidence, and that showed up in a big way when Ohio State started to flex their muscle. There was nothing Penn State could do. There were a couple of runs that Isaiah West had and Bo Jackson had where you saw them, bam, baby, they hit the hole, and they just go. They go quickly. There is no wasted movement, no wasted effort, energy. They just go. Even James Peoples, who – similar to Donaldson, where Donaldson fumbled, Peoples is losing touches right now. He has been jumped by a guy that came to Ohio State, I believe, in the summer. He had an injury in the offseason, so that delayed his progression. It delayed his development when he got to Columbus. Isaiah West is probably going to be a better back to me, just based off what I've seen so far. I could be wrong in the long run, but based off the small sample size with both of them, it seems like Isaiah West has the more promise. And we were very, very high. I say we, myself and Brian Smith of the Portal. We came on here after Isaiah West committed to Ohio State, and we talked about West, his running ability, what he brings to the table, and the fact that we really enjoyed him watching him play football. And neither one of us could understand why he was only a 3-star recruit. Now, I don't know if he went up to a 4-star by the time he signed with Ohio State, but I know when he was recruited and when he committed, he was a 3-star. And his film did not scream 3-star at all. What I have seen with this team is that one thing that screams very loud to me is that they are getting better. And this is the first time in a while that Ohio State has rushed for over 150 yards. Let that sink in. It was the first time in the Big Ten slate that Ohio State has rushed for over 150 yards. That's a little hard to believe with how Ohio State normally is supposed to run the ball. And also with that, it was the first time the team has ran for over 5 yards a carry in Big Ten play. So when I say that Ohio State's run game is not up to the standard, these numbers are they're not Ohio State numbers. Maybe okay Big Ten numbers, but even the Big Ten has really good backs. Normally Wisconsin does too. Wisconsin's in a weird funk right now with Luke Fickell. But when you look at it, Ohio State's ran for over 5 yards a carry 3 times. Once against Grambling, once against Ohio, the other against Penn State. They've ran for over 150 yards 3 times this season, once against Grambling, once against Ohio, and then against Penn State. And I think that shows a necessary growth because Wisconsin's rush defense was pretty good. They held Ohio State to only 98 rushing yards and 3.5 yards a pop. Some of that may have been some play calling and them trying to tinker and really just play around with some stuff. But you can't really go wrong. And then offensive output was just insane. The most yards per play in Big Ten play with 8.7. The second highest total yardage output for Ohio State in Big Ten play at 480. It's not the highest on the season. The highest on the season is Ohio State averaging 9.9 yards a play. It's 651 total yards of offense. That was against Grambling, which is expected. They probably could have averaged a uh, first down a play if they really wanted to, because you could kind of tell that at some point in time they could have scored 80, 81. 88, whatever the number could have been. It just kept running the score up. They ended up scoring 70 and shut out Grambling. So that's what you expect. But I'm going to expect this same type of play from the Buckeyes running backs. And it goes to the offensive line too. This is not just a running back question. The offensive line run blocked better. And Tegra Shabola played better. A man that has been talked about over and over and over again. He played better. So hats off to the running backs, hats off to the offensive line, hats off to the tight ends, everybody that's involved with the offense, from the guys on the field to the players that are on the sideline, scout team, support staff, the main assistant coaches. Everybody gets a Buckeye leaf for this one, because y'all got the job done. Hats off to everybody, because this was needed. What was also needed was BRIAN HARTLINE doing some things early in the game that set up some big plays for the Buckeyes offense in the second half. We will discuss why he did that after the break. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Once again, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank y'all for tapping and Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. If you have not already listened or watched the breakdown and the reaction to Ohio State's 118 to 102 lighting up the scoreboard performance against IU Indy on the hardwood. Go back and check that out. It's not a super full length episode. It's half the length. You get to hear my thoughts about what Ohio State did right, what they did wrong, how they can improve, and what's next to the Buckeyes basketball team. If you score the second most points ever in a Buckeye game in your season opener, that shows a lot of promise for the offense. The defense, well, we wish we could say the same for the defense. You hear all of my thoughts about that in that show. We're going to do some more Buckeye basketball recaps after games throughout the season to enhance what you get on a regular basis right here at Locked on Buckeyes. Speaking of enhancing what you get right here with Locked on Buckeyes, I couldn't go any further in this show, really in this week, without touching on BRIAN HARTLINE. Because as I went back and watched the game, I was remembering some thoughts I had during the game about what HARTLINE was doing in the first quarter, not just the first half. But in the first quarter, and there were things I've learned from Peyton Manning, from Tom Brady, who I can't stand because he ruined my childhood. Being a Colts fan, the Patriots always knocked the Colts out the playoffs, except for the year that they actually won the Super Bowl. I have three reasons to rejoice. I got a lot more to be a little upset about, but all those old quarterbacks did some things that really helped me understand the fundamentals of football and some of the things about offensive play calling. And there are things that coach will do early in the game to kind of set up some plays in the third and fourth quarters. And that showed up early because there were times there was a lot of movement and you saw a lot of motioning from two tight ends, or you saw a guy split out, a tight end split out with a receiver next to a slot receiver. Next thing you know, those guys move in and they motion. You're thinking, why in the world does this feel a little bit different than normal? Well, BRIAN HARTLINE was trying to see what Penn State was going to do to get into a rhythm, to figure out, well, if we give them this look now, and we try the look again in the couple of series later, if they change their look, we're going to get a better feel about how we're going to be able to move the ball down the field moving forward. And I love that about HARTLINE because HARTLINE's been under fire. Not saying under fire. That seems a little bit too harsh. He's been criticized. I don't know what's going on with the voice. He's been criticized as he should have been because sometimes the play calling just didn't feel like it had a rhythm. This isn't anything that's like rocket science. You can watch football and realize, man, it just doesn't seem like this thing has the rhythm that it needs to have. But when HARTLINE was up there doing this thing over and over and over this year, and then the off week, he was fielding phone calls for Penn State, and people are wondering if he's going to leave for Penn State. He didn't allow any of that to distract him. And the next thing you know, he realizes Penn State's corners, they're no match for CARNELL TATE or Jeremiah Smith. He realizes very, very quickly and early in that game how they're going to defend him, that he has seen some of this stuff from Jim Knowles earlier. Think about the first year of Jim Knowles. Some of those times that he's installing defense, you have to go up against it in practice. You're like, these guys play faster than this before. These guys could comprehend things before. What's going on? Well, Jim Knowles' defense is very, very, very complex. Even though Penn State has a lot of guys that will probably play in the NFL, this defense is complex, and it takes you literally 3 years to master it, which is why last year's defense was so much fun for Ohio State. Well, if BRIAN HARTLINE knows that going into the game, and he has a couple weapons on the outside that they can't stop, what's next? Find a way to get the ball to your playmakers in space. And he did just that. Also, this also piggybacks off the run game conversation we had in the very first segment. If the run game wasn't as efficient as it was, I don't believe those RPOs worked like they did in the game. Remember now, those are RPO slant that was a fake hand off. I think it was to Bo Jackson. It was Donaldson or Jackson, one of the two. You fake the hand off to them. The safety comes down, staying through the ball where the safety was, touchdown to Jeremiah Smith. And I think that's a play that's going to work 9 times out of 10, but it helps when your run game is very, very efficient. I would love to have an Ohio State running game that averages 200 yards a game. Now, is that a crazy number? No, because Ryan Day literally said at one point 250 and 250. That's not realistic with this team. It's not. It can be, but when you have those guys on the outside and Julian Sayin slinging it like he is, why would you want to take away from that to try to have a balanced offense? No, I think you just need to lean into what you got, and you can still average 500 yards of offense, and maybe more pass yards heavy, which is perfect. That's okay. It's not a problem. I think for Brian Hartline, he may have used this week as fuel to maybe add to his resume. Because if I'm Brian Hartline and I've only called plays for 7 games total that we know of, there may have been some games previously that he called plays, maybe, but I'm trying to do everything I can to build up my resume because he's going to continue to interview for jobs. And I don't believe he is an Eric Bieniemy, former Chiefs offensive coordinator that interviewed for various jobs in the NFL at the head coaching level, didn't get them, ended up getting a head coaching job, I believe. I could be wrong. Got one somewhere, and it just didn't work out. So I don't think that's Heartline to where he's a bad interviewer or people leave interviews and they don't have a good feeling about him. I don't think that at all about Heartline, actually. I think Heartline is going to be a really good coach one day, and he's continuing to build his own resume, not just with the track record of his progression as a coach, but what he is doing on the field via the recruiting, via the guys getting drafted to the NFL, via the development of players on this team. I think he is going to be making his resume very, very strong. And the offensive coordinator spot, if the year didn't happen before the Chip Kelly got to Ohio State, I think the offensive coordinator spot will be very, very strong. I know it is stronger than maybe it would have been, but no one thinks about 2023 at all. No one even thinks about him being the OC and not calling plays. Nobody talks about that. All they talk about is what's happening right now. It's almost a what have you done for me lately, and I'm not mad about that. It's actually a massive, massive benefit for Brian Hartline because people don't look at the past, look at what you're doing right now, and based off what he is doing right now, you can't really complain. If you look at the last game and you want to try to pick apart and nitpick, what do you want to complain about? 300 yards passing, 164 on the ground. He threw 4 touchdowns. He had 1 on the ground. Your 2 receivers that are elite guys. They combined for 240 plus receiving yards, 3 receiving touchdowns, 11 receptions apiece. Combined. What are you going to complain about? You can't. And if you try to and you think you accomplish it, somebody's going to pull you back down and humble you because you can't. Hartline was in his bag. His ability early in the game to try to figure out Penn State's philosophy in their scheme and how they're going to defend certain looks allowed him to dial up some things where you may get a one-on-one spot. You may get 2 guys on Jeremiah Smith in a bracket cover situation. And he's like, cool, I got Sayin, I got Smith. We're going to throw it up and let my guy get it. It happened over and over and over again. I have been critical of Brian Hartline. Y'all know that here on this show. I'm not going to shy away and deny the things that I've said here on the show. I've been critical of him. I didn't really think that this is going to happen in this game. Maybe it could happen next year. I just wasn't satisfied with the way that Brian Hartline was calling plays. Maybe I'm crazy, but Hartline's did a really good job against Penn State. Did a really good job. And his performance, specifically his performance against Penn State, makes me wonder what might be next for this offense to grow moving forward. We will discuss that after the break. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Guys, we're in the midst of another thrilling college football season, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. The app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying. I love zone deals too. pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. That's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thank you all for tapping and Locked On Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. When I think about what Ohio State did against Penn State and their progression throughout the season, I am looking forward to really figuring out what this offense can do next. Now, I have some thoughts in my head, not so much figuring it out. I just want to see what this offense thinks is next for them. Because every offense, especially after the eighth game, you have improvement. You have areas and ways you can improve. This isn't a team where you are perfect, where you are a finished product. There is more work to do. And with it being more work to do with the offense, I think it's easy to say, just continue doing what you're doing. It's not so much trying to reinvent the wheel or re-engineer the offense at this point of the year, like you had to do with the defense after the sixth game, which was the first loss of Ohio State last year. You just have to continue doing what you're doing. Leaning on your playmakers on the outside, Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, that nobody can stop. Allow Julian Sayin to be very, very efficient and be the quarterback he has been all season long. And allow the run game to continue to get better and to put them in situations where they will excel. It seems pretty easy, right? It is. We're not the ones on the team. We're not at practice. We're not the ones that are orchestrating the game plan, that are putting the pads on to hit every single day. We're not them. We're the ones that are sitting here watching Ohio State play and enjoying what we're watching and are realizing if they continue doing what they're doing and tap into another gear, maybe against Michigan, maybe in the Big Ten title, definitely in the college football playoff, they will probably win another national championship this season. I'm not here to say it's going to happen, but the way Ohio State's playing offensively and defensively, I would not be shocked if you start seeing national media members start saying Ohio State's going to win back-to-back national championships. There's always been, I know one person, I'm not going to say the name, that said they wouldn't be shocked if Jeremiah Smith won a national championship every year he played at Ohio State. I'm not saying who said it. It wasn't me, but I already know one person that's directly told me that, made that statement to me. And it's possible. What Ryan Day has put together so far this year has been remarkable. It's been a breath of fresh air, and you're seeing the growth of Ryan Day be seen by the growth of these players. Think about this. Caden McDonald has detailed and talked about how Matt Patricia has helped him play football and how that he helps him with stuff that's not just on the field. And that allows you to want to go harder every single day for a man that is not just a football coach, but maybe he's a life coach. Kenyatta Jackson Jr., I had an NFL scout, analyst, talk to me about him. Actually, it was on the show. I'm not going to say it was like a off conversation, off show thing. It was on the show. Ryan Roberts, my favorite NFL draft analyst, came on this show. I thought it was someone else actually before I made that statement, and talked about how NFL teams are going to love Kenyatta Jackson Jr. 6'5", 260, with that length as a frame. Stuff you can't teach with the size. All of a sudden, what are you going to find? K-Jack, battle with the injury early in the year, was in and out of the lineup, just on due to injury. He's healthy, and he's a monster. Caden Curry, 4-year guy. Ultimate glue guy on the defense. Been around a while, literally waiting his turn. He could have transferred to Indiana. It's not far from where he grew up, far from where he went to high school. Would have been closer to his family and friends. Would have been closer to the place that he knows best. What do you know? He sticks around, and he's a dog. And what's next? I know it's a defensive conversation, but what's next for this team? Tap into another gear. Is it needed now? No. But if you do it and you're successful, you're gonna win. You're going to win another national championship this season. I'm not trying to be prophetic or rubber crystal ball. I'm just trying to tell you what I already know about this team. This defense is elite. This offense, elite. This passing game is elite and getting better. The running game is solid and getting better. Only other issue that needs to get better consistently is special teams. I'm not a kicking expert, so I'm not going to try to overanalyze and be very, very critical of the kicking game. I just know it can get better. I will tell you this, though. Is it time to remove Brandon Ennis from returning punts? I would say it's past time. That should have happened a while ago. But his ability this past weekend when he found the soft spot in the offense in the zone and caught the pass and got a first down, you saw that he was hyped up and amped up. Great, cool. I love it. I love that he is still being a part of the offense. He's a captain. He has grown. He's Ryan Day's guy. I love all that stuff. But part of me still believes that the return game, both with punts and kickoffs, would be better if somebody else was back there. And I'm not saying Jeremiah Smith, I'm not putting him back there. I'm not saying Carnell Tate, I'm not putting him back there. Bryson Rogers or Mylan Graham are two guys that are not a part of Ohio State's main core of offensive players and that can return kickoffs and return punts. If you want to save Caleb Downs for only special occasions, maybe the Indiana game, like he did last year, so be it. But I'll put Caleb Downs back there for punts. I would put Rogers or Graham back there for kickoffs and let them ride. It's not that Ennis was horribly bad this past weekend. I am sitting here wondering why did he slip here? Or is it the turf? Okay, cool, but you don't see other guys really slip like that. I know it's happened. I'm not gonna say that it can't in this situation. I know that it happened. Why does it seem like some of the decisions he makes was like catching punts or letting stuff go? I just don't understand some of the things, and that's one area with Ohio State you have too many athletes that have any issues there. Put your loyalty aside and put the best guys back there. That's all I gotta say. If this offense goes into another gear, if they're in fourth gear now, or maybe they're trying to hover back and forth between 3 and 4. If they stick in fourth gear instead of trying to go to fourth and then try to coast with third, and then let's say they go to fifth gear after that, y'all better watch out, man. I'm trying to tell you. Y'all better watch out because rotating in the CFP awaiting a national championship helps Ohio State when there's one guy on the team that is an occasional problem. What you can do, rotate that thing. Even though it goes against my own personal philosophy for offensive linemen playing football. Ohio State won a national championship. We're rotating between two spots or three guys. It's not my philosophy, but it worked. And since it worked, I can see Ryan Day rotating with Shabola and Padilla over and over and over. And honestly, it's going to be the easiest way to get Padilla on the field because Hinsman is not. I don't think Hinsman has exhausted his eligibility. He might be able to return next year. Does he need to? Not really. He's put together enough film that if he wanted to go out there and go to the NFL, so be it. He could. But let's say Hinsman comes back, when Montgomery comes back, and Shabola comes back. Who is the guy that's going to be at right guard? Part of me still believes Shabola would still be a better tackle than guard, but we'll see. I think the moving parts with this team are perfect. I think the ability for them to be so versatile on offense is great. I think Hartline's ability to spend time in the off week working on the offense, fine-tuning, retooling, all of those things to describe what he did, and he didn't allow the Penn State conversations to be a distraction. Hats off to Brian Hartline. I'm going to clap it up real quick. We haven't clapped it up on here in a while, but I figured this is the perfect time at the end of the show to clap it up for Brian Hartline because a man that has been criticized and people even said he shouldn't call plays right now, he got the job done. What more can be said? Thank y'all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked on Big Ten. Craig Sheeman breaks down the most exciting conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championship and every game in between. Find Locked on Big Ten and Locked on Buckeyes on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. This has been Locked on Buckeyes. right here on a Tuesday. Before I get there, you can follow me on any social media platform at jsteven07. Also follow Locked On Buckeyes on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. I think I got all of those correctly because we're expanding. 2025 has been a year of growth for the show, and that includes social media. This has been Locked On Buckeyes right here on a Tuesday. My words are done, just like the show. We'll see you next time.